So good, so good, so good.
New spring arrivals are at Nordstrom Rack stores now. Get ready to save big with up to 60% off Rag & Bone, Marc Jacobs, Free People, and more.
How did I not know Rack has Adidas?
Because there's always something new.
Join the Nordy Club to unlock exclusive discounts, shop new arrivals first, and more. Plus, buy online and pick up at your favorite Rack store for free. Great brands, great prices. That's why you Rack.
For the News and Observer, I'm Dawn Vaughan, Capitol Bureau Chief and host of Under the Dome. Today, I'm joined by the North Carolina Department of Administration Secretary, Gabe Esparza. Esparza is a member of Democratic Governor Josh Stein's cabinet. He ran previously for state treasurer, worked in management in the private sector at Walt Disney Co., American Express, most recently in the federal government at the U.S. Small Business Administration, also part of the 911 tech company, Rapid SOS. I want to talk about your professional history, your personal history. You're born in Ann Arbor, Michigan, grew up in Colorado. Your bachelor's in international relations is from Stanford, and you have an MBA from Harvard Business School. And I guess you're appointed when Stein took office in January, right?
That's right.
So how is it being DOA secretary so far?
Well, it's great. I love it. I love public service. It's an honor to work here with the amazing people at the Department of Administration and obviously with the governor and the team. And so it's been fabulous and love making a difference in people's lives.
So how did you go from the private sector to public sector? Was there an origin story there as far as why you wanted to switch what you do?
There is. So I had been at American Express for 13 years, and I loved American Express, great brand, great products, great people, great leadership. And I had thought about what it would be like to spend the rest of my career there. And I could imagine retiring, looking back on my career and saying, whoa, I sold a lot of credit cards. And would I be fulfilled with that? And I said no. And so that began the moment of thinking about what else could I do that was more fulfilling. And I had always done some version of public service in a volunteering capacity, sitting on nonprofit boards, participating in some campaigns. And the more I did that, the more interested I was in pursuing that set of options. And so ultimately, when I got invited to join the U.S. Small Business Administration, I said yes. And it was a pretty distinct shift on the surface, but I had actually been doing a lot of that in the background for many years. And so it was a natural shift for me, too.
What kind of, you said you'd worked on campaigns, anyone in particular, or who did you work with?
Imagine every presidential campaign since 2008. Okay. So, and largely, since we're here in Hispanic Heritage Month, largely in getting the Latino vote out and other things to support those campaigns and those candidates that I liked.
Well, talk about you. We mentioned again Hispanic Heritage Month, and you're the first Latino in this role, in Stein's cabinet. Tell us about your family, your ancestry, and their story.
So it's a classically Mexican-American story. My family, like so many other Mexican families, left Mexico during the Mexican Revolution, which was in the 19-teens, and traveled up through the Southwest and ultimately landed in the Los Angeles area. And so my father is the oldest of 12 kids. He worked in the fields picking oranges for 25 cents a crate in the 50s and the 60s. And it was my grandfather, Guadalupe Esparza, who said, the pathway to a better life is through education. And that education equals freedom. The more education you have, the more freedom you have to choose what you want to do in your life. Mm-hmm. And so that emphasis on education has been present throughout my journey. In fact, for my father, who had been working in the fields, he ultimately became the first Latino to graduate with a PhD at the University of Michigan, which is why I was born at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor.
Oh, okay. What was it like? Did you live in Michigan very long, or you said you grew up in Colorado?
Exactly. We left when I was 2. Yeah. For a hot second, we were back in California, and then my dad got a job in Colorado. And so I grew up in Boulder, Colorado, from elementary school all through high school. And in many ways, to tie it back to North Carolina for a second, there is no other city in the world that I've been to that more reminds me of growing up in Boulder, Colorado than Asheville.
Oh, okay.
It is that same sort of nestled in the mountains, sort of the hippie granola type of attitude, and lots of purple hair and nose rings and interesting smells wafting out of the storefronts. That's Boulder, that's Asheville. So I feel very at home in Asheville, if we can say it that way.
Okay. And how did you, so you went to Stanford, and then when did you work at Disney World? That was early career or for a Disney company?
Right out of college. I had thought, like so many of my peers in college going in the investment banking or management consulting route, that would have effectively been sitting behind a desk and a computer and a spreadsheet. And I said, I want to be with people and understand what management and operations and customer service is all about. Mm-hmm. So the Disney folks had the great grace to send me to Orlando to work at the Walt Disney World property. Mm-hmm. And I was a guest services manager at Epcot. Okay. If you've been down to Epcot and Walt Disney, I know so many people have been down there, and it was a fabulous experience because, as you can imagine, everything you can possibly manage from an operations standpoint and from a management standpoint happens there.
It's like a city, its own city.
Absolutely is. Yeah. So the operation itself was an experience in sort of that science of operations. At the same time, and it's no surprise that I went to work at Amex later, the spirit of customer service is similarly strong. That pride in the brand, that pride in everything that you do. It is not just the custodial staff that is responsible for picking stuff up. No, every single employee, if they see something out of sorts or a paper on the ground or trash, everybody is required to do that. And that's just the spirit and the ethos of the Disney company. And so I loved being there and learned so much, and ultimately used that to bounce into an MBA program. And but very different than so many of my peers in business school as well, who had just done that consulting or banking type of pathway.
Okay, what's your favorite thing about Disney World or Epcot, since you mentioned Epcot?
Well, this is not a Disney-specific reference, but because it was in Orlando and because I had access to all the backstage stuff, when the NASA Space Shuttle program was in its heyday, we could go up on the roof of some of the buildings at the, 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning and watch the Dawn space shuttle launches. You could see it from Orlando.
Wow.
And so just to see that trail of flame and smoke going up beautifully through the skies is some indelible memories. But of course, all the amazing things that you see on a daily basis at Disney was fabulous.
Well, that's really cool. Yeah. So how did, so Harvard after that, and you mentioned Amex, and then the federal government, where did you live when you worked for Small Business Administration?
So that was actually just during COVID, as you can imagine. Okay. So my duty station was Washington, D.C., but so much of it was still remote from Charlotte, where I live even to this day. So it was a lot of back and forth, but ultimately over time became more D.C. and less Charlotte.
Did you ever go see the space shuttle up in D.C. at Uber Hazy at Dulles?
Yes, no, I've wherever there is one of the space shuttles parked, there's one in Los Angeles. They're all over the place. I've had the chance to go and see those. I love the spaceport. In fact, as a kid, before we had email and the internet, I would write to NASA and ask them to send me pictures of the Apollo missions, the Viking missions, and all those things. So my love of space has been for a long time.
I think like you were a kid. I mean, you're Generation X, I think, right? I am too. So that 80s kid, and even though, of course, the Challenger tragedy had a really big impact, but it was the I don't know, just something about that era of spaceflight when you were kids then.
Interesting you mentioned the Challenger disaster. I wanted to be an astronaut as a kid. And then as an 8th grader, watched that live on TV and said, wait a second, you can die in this job? Okay, I don't want to be an astronaut anymore. Of course, sadly, those people passed away, but in the spirit of exploration and adventure, that remains in me today.
Yeah. So how did you end up in, you mentioned you're in Charlotte now, based in Charlotte now. How did you end up in North Carolina?
So like so many people who moved to Charlotte, it is the finance and banking capital of the United States and second place behind New York City, amazingly enough. And so my wife is in finance, and her company was bought and moved us to Charlotte.
Okay. We are going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk more with Department of Administration Secretary Esparza and about all of the downtown buildings and everything that you all oversee. We'll be right back.
Score more with the college-branded Venmo debit card and earn up to 5% cash back with Venmo Stash.
Got paid back? With the Venmo debit card, you can instantly access your balance and spend on what you want, like game day snacks, gear, tickets, and more. The more you do, the more cash back you can earn. Plus, there's no monthly fee or minimum balance. Sign up now at Venmo.com/collegecard. The Venmo MasterCard is issued by the Bancorp Bank N.A. Select schools available. Venmo stash terms and exclusions apply at venmo.me/stash terms. Max $100 cash back per month.
This episode is brought to you by White Claw Surge. Great podcast pick, friend. No surprises there. After all, you're all about finding the tastiest flavors out there, just like White Claw Surge. And with big, bold flavors to enjoy, like blood orange, blackberry, cranberry, and more, it's time to go all in on taste. Unleash the flavor. Unleash White Claw Surge. Please drink responsibly. Hard seltzer with flavors. 8% alcohol by volume. White Claw Seltzer Works, Chicago, Illinois.
You're listening to Under the Dome. I'm Capitol Bureau Chief Dawn Vaughan, here with Department of Administration Secretary Gabe Esparza. Before the break, we were talking about your personal and professional career, and I wanted to mention one more thing that had to do with your transition to public service and about this 911 tech company. So tell us about that.
Sure. It's a company called Rapid SOS. I did this after I left American Express. I had invested in and then joined this company whose mission was to solve a very fundamental problem in the emergency services space, which was the inability to find people who dialed 911 from a cell phone, because the 911 system was created for the landline system, which was tied to a database of home addresses. So in an era of cell phones, when people weren't tied to their home at that time necessarily, the 911 services had a hard time locating people if they either couldn't speak English or had a hard time describing where they were in the moment of their crisis. And so this company came along to create a data pathway into the 911 system so as not to rely only on the voice discussion with a person and the dispatcher. And so for me in my career, it was actually the perfect transition experience of still working for a for-profit, venture-backed startup enterprise, but whose mission was to save people's lives and to transform government, which is a theme of what we do here at the Department of Administration as well, to transform government in a way that was more efficient and more effective. So it was the perfect transition from sort of the hardcore corporate private sector to ultimately what I'm doing now in government, which was previously at the federal level and now here at the state level.
So I think maybe when people hear Department of Administration, if you work in state government already, you probably know what the agency does. But if you don't, what is that, right? So what is it? To explain to the, the person you just met at an event, like what the agency actually is. Exactly.
That name administration is sort of the amorphous inability to actually describe what it does in its title. So we are the business manager of state government operations. We enable the other agencies of government to operate based on managing the assets of the state and providing services to our other agency partners. So, for example, we manage all of the state property. That's both land and buildings. We manage state construction, so we build buildings and oversee the inspection of buildings. We manage the facilities and maintenance and upkeep of the buildings, and then all sorts of business services like the motor fleet pool, procurement, mail services, so on and so forth, right? These are all the assets and the business services of the government. We also, interestingly enough, have a whole set of divisions around advocacy, which is not the normal set of things that other state departments of administration or even at the federal level the GSA has. So in this case, our advocacy work includes managing the relationship with our American Indian tribal communities. It includes providing grants for sexual assault and domestic violence prevention programs. It includes non-public education, so all private schools and homeschools, as well as our hub office, historically underutilized businesses. This is women and minority businesses that we certify and then encourage to do business with the state.
The hub office was in, I can't remember off the top of my head if it was the House or Senate budget, but was going to, the House budget, I think, was going to cut it and then decided not to. So I guess, where does that stand? Obviously everyone who's listening probably knows there's no state budget yet still, but, as far as maybe behind the scenes, what with the future of hub.
So I believe it's critically important work for our state to be able to uplift and uphold all small businesses, all women and minority businesses, all businesses, rural businesses, veteran-owned businesses, et cetera. Governor Stein has been very forward-leaning in his support of Hub, and so we will continue to do the good work of the department until told otherwise.
With the budget, are there things that administration is kind of, sort of on hold? There's this holding pattern now waiting, or did any, needs get taken care of in the two mini budgets yet?
Like all departments across state government, there are things in there that were helpful to us, things that we did not like, things that seem to have been avoided. So it's a mixed bag, like everything. I think fundamentally, as the governor has stated so many times, we simply need a budget so that the people of North Carolina feel like their government is doing the work of the people. That includes the Department of Administration. And as I mentioned, since we are helpful in enabling the rest of our agency partners to do their work, collectively, we are sort of stuck in our ability to deliver at maximum capacity because we don't have a budget.
One thing that was in a budget maybe a couple cycles ago was money for construction that would be like not in control of DOA, but of the legislature, and that we're sitting in your office in the Albemarle building across from the construction site of what was the old administration building, which was taken down. So people that are listening to this who don't work in government, there's been huge physical changes on this side of downtown because the Department of Administration building was just, a rectangle tall government office building, but it was across, for people that don't know the exact location, the giant globe of the Museum of Natural Sciences across the street. So that building is down, and there's a hole in the ground in construction now, which previous budget took away from Department of Administration to handle, and that will be this education campus, which will have K-12, higher ed, commerce. I believe you all will be back there.
Nope, we won't be there. So you're right. It has non-public.
Okay.
It has public education. Mm-hmm. It has the Commerce Department, the community college system, and the UNC leadership system.
So you all will stay in the Albemarle.
That's correct.
And then this building is also the state auditor and the governor. And the governor the governor's office used to be over in the administration building, which was just called, I'm pretty sure, just administration
Admin.
building. Right. And here it's the
Albemarle.
The Albemarle. And then another huge change downtown that I think people have noticed, especially if you've ever gone to the executive mansion or been around there, is the Bath building. And that was an administration project. And I don't really even know how you describe it architecturally. I think brutalist. It was sort of this white block. If it was at night with the lights on, it looks sort of like a waffle maybe. And that's putting it generously positive. And that site was across from current North Carolina Freedom Park, which is relatively new downtown, and it's gone now.
That's correct. It was actually more expensive for us to maintain than it was to tear down. So part of our job in state construction and state property is to decide, of course, where there are new things to build, we will go and execute on that. But where there are buildings that have extended beyond their useful life and it's time to take them down because they're more expensive or more risky to maintain, that's an example of one we took down. So it's a nice, beautiful green space right now, and we'll see what happens to it.
It is. I've noticed the grass is there, and you can actually see the old Raleigh, the historic houses and everything, and that much different type of architecture than.
That's right.
I don't know when the Bath building was built, the 60s or 70s maybe, I think, in that general era where it seemed like a lot of government buildings were built and kind of.
In the meantime, we are quite proud that the new DHHS building out on Blue Ridge Road will be coming online shortly. In fact, most of that staff is in the process of transitioning in there already from where they were temporarily housed at Dix Park. And so that's a very big but important project for us in terms of having come in on time and on budget with, of course, the latest and greatest building practices and construction practices. So we're very proud of that, and that will be officially ribbon-cutted here in early November.
Oh, okay. So really soon for all of that. So, I mean, a lot of talk of building movements for years. And here we have, DHHS opening over in an area that's like pretty much a healthcare road, I feel like, with UNC Rex over there. And I have a doctor's office over there. There's all sorts of doctor's offices over there. So that'll be kind of the healthcare theme of that side of Raleigh, where there's a lot of development. Is there anything else downtown that you think people should know about as far as anything that you're all involved with buildings or shifting of where state employees work?
Well, you mentioned the new Education and Commerce building that is being constructed right now. Like every building that comes online, it causes a domino effect of other things to happen subsequent to that. So when Public Education and Commerce moved from their current, I don't know what the proper title for their building is, the Pink Palace on that side of Halifax Mall. But those folks will be moving into the new building here. That means we will go through a rehab project for that building and decide who goes in there next. Similarly, in Caswell Square, the community college system will be moving into that building. Those buildings will likely come down. And again, so it's just this domino effect of things that happen with every project. And it is only over the course of years and years and years that you see it happen and evolve, but it's part of the evolution of state government and having the proper facilities to make sure we can execute on our work.
Is there anything with the Archdale? I've described it as a PS2 because it looks sort of like a PlayStation. It's the very tall building for people that aren't aware. And that there's no plans for the Archdale yet, I suppose. There
is a future possibility for that one to come down. I don't think that's anytime soon. And obviously because that is connected so fundamentally to the structure of the underground system of the Halifax Mall, parking and piping and all the energy systems and so forth. That one is a pretty big project to tackle. So we'll get to that one eventually, but I don't think that one's imminent.
We're almost out of time, but I want to ask one more question and then we'll pick headliners. You ran previously for treasurer. Would you run for office again?
Well, I appreciate that question. Of course, I'm very happy, very satisfied, and honored to be in the role that I am. I would say the question is not whether I want to run again. At this point, it's whether my wife and family have the stomach for another run. So I don't think any of that is imminent, of course, and I am just so happy and honored to be on the team and that the governor asked me to join and lead the department here. So doing great work here, and we'll continue as long as we can.
Okay. We're recording this a few days earlier than people listen. So, of course, the news always changes. But what I think we can talk about things that are, still newsy, even, a week from now, days from now. So what's your pick for a headliner of the week?
Well, just this morning, I got both a COVID and a flu vaccine shot as the Department of Administration is administrating a little bit of a clinic for people to come in and get their vaccines. And so I know it's that time of year where flu is imminently upon us. And of course, COVID is always something that we need to be mindful of. So was happy to do that and do some media around it as well so that we can promote the best interests of health around the state.
It's that time of year for a lot of things. I was just thinking in Council of State this month, I think it was Treasurer Briner or was that another Council of State member said, it's the time of year, it's open enrollment. And everyone laughed because that's not, it also is open enrollment time for things. It's vaccine time for fall. It is also my headliner, marching band season. I am a high school marching band parent, and I know there are a lot of us out there. And it's senior nights are coming up. If your child is a senior, you'll spend your weekends at really just the statewide. I've been much further out than Wake County, watching different high school bands across North Carolina, and they're all doing good work, and it's really fun to see all of that. So that's my pick for a headliner of the season. So, all right, well, we are out of time. Thanks so much, Secretary, for being on Under the Dome. I am Captain Bureau Chief Dawn Vaughan with producer Laura Brache. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.
For more from our politics team, subscribe to the News and Observer at newsobserver.com/subscribe. Sign up for our political newsletter, also called Under the Dome, at newsobserver.com/newsletters. Thanks for listening.